the last video we installed a fresh copy of Ubuntu in a VM that is, obviously you can see over here, is hosted under Windows in Oracle VirtualBox. It could be hosted anywhere, whether it's another Linux machine, whether it's a Mac or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But in this session, what we're going to do is we're going to install Apache and MySQL and perhaps compile PHP from scratch. And as we go along, I'll explain why is it that we need to compile PHP from scratch. Let's get the terminal, and I'm just going to make this guy bigger. And I'm going to do sudo -s, and that's my DVDA password. And there we go. Now I open a shell as root. I do not remember if I said that in the previous video or not. But -s is a shortcut for shell, and sudo is a, how can I say this? It is a prefix, or you can think of it as a prefix to run something as root. So when you say run something as root and that something is a shell, what you did is you create a shell where you are root. So thus root at core, which is the machine, and the directory where I am at. All right, so let's start. I'm just gonna start changing things here already. I'm gonna do, come on, stop it. Where is my Apache? There we go, too fast. I'm gonna start by doing an update and an upgrade. One relates to like the indices of what is where, and what's the version of what. And the other is bring everything to the latest version. So that's that. So everything is perfectly current in this computer. And we do an apt-get install, because that's what we're doing, Apache 2. And I don't remember what's the difference between Apache 1 and Apache 2. Obviously, Apache 1 is very old. And Apache 2 is the current stuff. But technically, I don't know what the difference is. And where are we? Right, so we install Apache, and we use this system control to see if it's up and running, and our installation was successful. And as you can see from this green stuff here, it is up and running. So if I were to open a browser window, this browser window is running in the small computer, and I go local host. Okay, got it. It shows that the Apache server that I just installed is up and running, and this is like the default page. And it has a bunch of information here that tells you where the configuration is and where the files for the server are, and a bunch of other stuff that I don't know what it is. But the thing is, Apache is up and running, so that was easy. And next, what we're going to do is the same thing with SQL Server. And yes, I'm sorry, not SQL Server, MySQL. Apologies. I know. People, what? You're installing SQL Server in Linux? Traitor. Actually, SQL Server is quite a good product. And for some of the work that I do, for real, I use SQL Server over MySQL. The reason being that it's able, for a single query, SQL Server is able to use multiple threads, multiple CPUs. And in this machine, I happen to have a bunch of CPUs. So everything runs much faster on SQL Server than it would run on MySQL, because I can't figure out how to run, how to get a single query to run multi-threaded in SQL Server. In MySQL, while this happens in SQL Server. Also, the management of the server itself. If you just want something that you turn on and run, and you don't have to worry about stuff, In Windows, I'm not sure about in other OSs, but in Windows, it's easier to do that with SQL Server. Anyway, so we're back to MySQL, which has a different set of advantages. One of which it's free. App install Microsoft install. Okay, we install that. Is that what it did? Yes. And let's see if it's up and running. Yes, it's up and running. You can see over here, system control status, MySQL. And so that's good. I'm just going to see these guys here. I think I'm going to move them below. And we're going to go with the Apache configuration. So this I'm going to move to here. And when we get to there, we'll see. So let me get rid of this, because all of this changed. And what we are going to do is the Apache configuration. And we used to have a separate tree for the server. You made backup and everything else much, well, I wouldn't say it's easier, but at the time we thought it was a good idea. But since we're doing this a more of a generic installation, we're gonna stick to the normal way of doing things. All right, so going back to the Apache configuration, and I'm gonna copy that series of helpful things that we brought up on the screen, that initial page. I'm going to copy that as opposed to just get rid of it. And I'm going to edit. And I'm going to say delete everything. I'm going to replace with this. And that's simply going to say FilmAf server is up. And if you had any doubt as to whether we were hitting the right pages, we can go to localhost, and it says FilmAf server is up. And also, because we did that hard coding with the hosts it's hosts. Over here, if you go www.filmaf.edu, oh no, not FilmAf, FilmAf. You can see it's hitting that same server, and that's because of that trick we used. All right, so good. So we did that, and we did the test. Okay, very good. I'm not sure why I have this here. And I'm sure there is a good reason. I'm going to save this someplace because it might be useful at some point, but it's not now. I'm just going to call this test Apache, and that is how we did it. Yeah, very good. All right, so MySQL. Okay, so things are going to start to change here as well. It took me quite a while to figure out where these files were and what the settings were. So let's do the configuration files for MySQL are in this this directory here. Oops, sorry. Quit. I don't want VI. I want ls. So that's, you can see over here, and you have myconf, and I think myconf only has a redirection. Sorry, an include. Let's see. Yeah, see, you just have an include directive for those two files that we're going to edit. And what we're going to do is we're going to edit file number 1, this guy, which is empty. And this is actually not current. Let me get the correct information, or the final information. It's not that it's incorrect, but it's not what we need. And what we need is this. And I'm going to go over exactly what that means, because I spent quite some time trying to figure out what should be here. And some of it is historical. Oh, a lot of it is historical. All right, let me get rid of this. So when we when we added support for UTF in FilmAf, at the time it was DVDAF, it was not FilmAf. When we added Unicode support, there was no Unicode support in PHP, and I'm not even sure if there was Unicode support in MySQL. There might or there might not have been. So this was very early days, certainly early 2000s. And so we wrote our own Unicode libraries. And to the database and to PHP, all that looked like were funny characters in the regular, in this case, Latin one character set. And we encoded everything as UTF-8, and we have several filters that took Unicode and you create search strings so that you could search for an O with an umlaut without having to type the umlaut, and the same thing with all the other accents. When you search for the letter O, is going to find all of those other things that look like O's and have accents, or even are some other different characters in other alphabets. But they look like an O, so we put all of them together. So a lot of the sorting and the searching takes advantage of that, and we basically cooked our own in the Unicode libraries that we created for that. And again, we did that first because there was no Unicode support for PHP at the time, and second because that allowed us to create this additional easier way of searching for things for people that don't necessarily have international keyboards and so forth, and find relevant results and sort things accordingly. Anyway. That's a long story, but what comes to the upshot is that the character sets that we use are Latin 1, even though the true information is in UTC-8. And I guess some of you are not going to know what that means, and it doesn't really matter. What matters is that in this configuration, these things say Latin 1. And the same thing with collation, that has to do with sort order. And the last piece has to do with how how MySQL has evolved over time. And if you were just to install a plain version of MySQL, as we just did, the default authentication is going to be something that is not compatible with the version of PHP that we're running for a number of reasons. One is going to be the character set, and the other is going to be the authentication method. So these entries also take care of that incompatibility by rolling back some of those features that we would have in MySQL. And in the next file, I don't think there is, that's the only file. Is that the only file? Yes, that is the only file. So that went in. And I'm not sure if there are any changes. I don't think there are any changes that we do in this other file. Let me check. Nope. Yeah, nope. Let me bring that stuff up. Hey, stop moving. Okay, so we just did this. which is this. So that's done. That is done. And the servers is up, so I'm going to stop it first. So stop. There you go. Quit here. And copy. So we're going to stop the service. And we're going to start the service. We didn't get any errors. That is good. And let's log in as root. And so it's up and running. And let's see who are the users that became installed. The default distribution, and there you go. And it's everything as we expected. These are not the real users that we're going to use, but we're just checking that everything is as we expect it to be. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the database, which is called DVDAF. There we go. And again, over here, you see that we're defining a specific character set. And for the reasons that I just went through a second ago. And now let's see if everything is as we expect it to be. So yes, client, connection, database, results, and server, all Latin 1. The file system is binary. That is cool. That's the way it should be. And so this looks perfect. And for what we want, right? Different installations, we want different things. But for this site, this is what we want. And the collations are all good as well. So that is cool. And what we're going to do is create our DVDAF user. Now I'm going to have to change it. So let me see if I can do that in one go. No, I have to do alter user. Okay. So I'm going to create the DVDAF user. You can see this is the syntax. You get this when you get the rest of the files, but that's what it is. And I'm going to grant all privileges on the DVDAF database to the DVDAF user. I'm going to flush privileges. And that is, we're going to go to MySQL, and I'm going to change the user to use a different authentication. So this, remember I mentioned that the authentication method has changed over time with MySQL. This is telling it to use the legacy authentication method for the user DVDAF so that we can connect to it from the old PHP version that we do have. Right, so all of that is good, and we can do our exit, and we can do a restart. I don't think we need it, but whatever. All right, disable SC Linux. I don't think we need this anymore. I'm just going to delete this. If we need it, we have it stored, saved some other place. All right. So now it's time to copy the DVDAF database. Now the copy that I have right here, right now, is about a year old, and hopefully we're going to get a more current version. But I have that installed in a different virtual machine, so I'm going to run through the process in case you guys need to do this in the future. You will know how to do it. Hold on. It's in this CentOS database. I'm going to start CentOS. Obviously, CentOS 6.1. This is like 10 years old. Or nearly. Quite frankly, works fine. Anytime now, anytime. Come on, guy. Quick, quick. You can do it. Okay, very good. Oh, went to the other window. I hate when that happens. Here we go. All right, go away. Let's do a terminal and the command. Where's the command? Here you go. There's it. Oh, come on. Paste. Is this MySQL dump? You have your what is this? All right, this is the. I think this is the first one. Is the database name minus username minus p, meaning you're going to provide a password that is not provided in the command line. You type it up, and this other greater than, you're redirecting it, so you're putting the output of that in this file called dvdaf_db.sql. Hit enter. You type in your password. Hit enter, and right now it is exporting the entire dvdaf database into this dvdaf_db SQL file. And if you want to see that, here we go, system monitor. You can see it thinking over here. Unfortunately, I don't know how to see disk activity. And since we're writing to disk here, that's actually what would be helpful, but you can see the activity here. So this VM I only dedicated 2 CPUs to it. So I guess you could say that right now I have 2 CPUs in this machine and 8 CPUs in that machine, so that's 10 being used. So you have to budget your CPUs so that, okay, it's finished. So if you have several VMs and you want to be able to run them at the same time, you have to budget these things. The same thing with memory. All right, so that's done. That's the guy here. And we're going to do an ls -l and put an age at the end for human. And you see that it's 3.2 gigs in size. So what we're going to do is we'll come here, copy, and we're going to come here to my share. I'm going to do paste and replace. So it is copying that to my share. Remember, that's the shared folder we created. We're copying the file in show more details. What group? Text file busy. I don't know what it's talking about. Because the file is here. F5, it's here. I don't know what the error was. Anyway, so at this point we copy the file, and I'm going to shut down this VM because we got everything we needed from it. System. So this is CentOS, so you can see it looks different than Ubuntu, but you know, whatever. Shut down. Now let's go back to our Ubuntu machine, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here on Files, on the Home. Right, so I'm going to go to our share. I'm going to pick that up. Here we go, dvdaf_db.sql, the file I just wrote. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to go to my home, and I'm going to paste. And there you have it, it's here. And which happens to be the location where my shell is. Oops. And there you have it. You know, if I do a human, 3.2 gigs. So that's the guy. And if you want to see the beginning of that file, say 20 lines. Oops. You see, this is what it looks like. You know, this distribution, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Whatever. That's what it looks like anyway. Okie dokie. So we have our file, our database. This is the entire database. Everybody's collection, everything is in there. So now we go in and we load that into the Ubuntu machine, the MySQL MySQL database in the Ubuntu machine with this command, which is MySQL -u, which is the username, -u was using the user dvdaf, using a password, which I'm going to type in when it's going to ask me for it, and to the dvdaf database. And this is the input file, right? Goes in, asks me for the password. And this takes a little bit longer to run than the export. So if I go here and, no, not terminal, no. If I go here and it's not here, system monitor, it will show me it getting busy. But unfortunately, as you see, it only takes one CPU. Like everybody else here is sleeping. There are 7 people sleeping and only one person doing work. Just like in the office. Oh, they changed. Somebody went to get coffee. They take turns doing work. That's it. They just take turns doing work. And okay, oh, still more to go. It's interesting. So this probably, this switches between the different CPUs, they may represent, I was going to say the individual tables, but I don't know how that file is organized, so there's no reason. Well, I guess if we wanted, we could find out if we somehow put some additional messages in there. But it's just curious. But unfortunately, only one CPU being used at a time. There may be ways to engage more CPUs, like if you split this file and do different things. Who knows? So I added these to the favorites. Like you just saw me right-click on this thing, right-click on this guy and say add to favorites, because that way, that's like our, what's it called, that bar, the bottom of the computer. Yeah, that bar at the bottom of the computer. Here is at the side. So when I say favorites, this is the language or the terminology that is used to pin the applications down to the bar, taskbar. Don't remember how it's called in the Mac. Maybe it's taskbar too. All right, so it's still doing its thing. So maybe that's a time we can talk about why is it that we need to compile a PHP from scratch. When FilmAf was created, I think the first iteration of the site we did it was plain PHP. And maybe because of the hardware that we had at the time, I don't know the reasons, but for whatever reason, the PHP was taking quite a beating in putting the pages together. And the way that we managed that situation was by creating a module, a PHP module that was written in C. So similar to all the PHP itself is written in C, right? And when you go and you look at all the modules that you either compile or you include or you install, in your PHP distribution, all of those are written in similar languages, probably either C or C++, and they add functionality to the PHP environment that becomes part of the PHP package. And because that code is written in C, in principle, you have a greater opportunity for optimization than in other languages. And I'm choosing my words carefully here because it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be fast. It means that because you're closer to the hardware, you will have opportunities for optimization that other languages may not offer. On the other hand, it's a different balance. But anyway, at the time, we thought, okay, these pages are generating these pages is killing our server. Let's write a C module that's going to do the heavy lifting. And we did it. So the heavy lifting for the code in the database is written in C, including all the Unicode libraries, and a lot of the page rendering, and a lot of the input validation. All of that is done in C. And at some point in the past 20 years, we also migrated some of that to C++. And quite frankly, I don't remember the reasons why, but we did. And we migrated some of the new functionality, or created new functionality that was in C++. And therefore, but not all of it for whatever reason, as it's often the case with systems. So what we are left with today is that the website itself has part of its code in the PHP JavaScript framework, which is what a traditional website would have, like traditional old website would have. And a lot of its code is written in C and C++. And because of that, you have to compile PHP from scratch, because that's how you bring C and C++ code into your PHP framework. The plus side was that we got a much lighter load on the server. The negative side, it's that is it harder to maintain? Not necessarily, actually. It's easier to test, but it's harder to maintain in the sense that as PHP evolved, the API between PHP itself and this extra modules has changed, and we didn't keep up with it. And if we were to migrate these DVD-AF modules, C and C++ modules, from PHP, I think 5 to PHP 7 or 8, which is where it is now, it may be a pain in the ass. So anyway, that's where we are now. And the reason why we need to compile PHP from source is because a lot of the code of the website is written in C and C++. And the reason why we need to use an old version of PHP is because we didn't keep up with the new iterations of the C API for PHP. Okay, so that's still going on, meaning we're still importing the database. Anytime now. Anytime. Mm-hmm. Anytime. We may be able to start a new terminal session and see what's going on with the new window. Here we go. So you're probably familiar with it. Called MySQL, which is oh, it finished. How timely. All right, very good. Yeah, finished. So I'm gonna do MySQL, how is this again? Minus U, it is dvdaf, so that's the user minus P, because I need to type in a password. And that's it. I'm gonna say show databases. And it has these two. I'm gonna go, well, not cd, I'm gonna go use dvdaf and show, not showy, show tables. And I'm gonna make this bigger. What happened? I make it smaller. Bite me. This guy? Yes. Here you go. Show tables. All right. So these are all the tables that comprise the dvdaf website. Gosh, I don't remember some of these. So the main tables are DVD, that contains the, obviously, the listings information, which includes DVDs, Blu-rays, films, and all the other stuff that would be like that. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough, because if you ever want to change any of this, this is your chance to understand what it means, because probably not going to do this again. All right, so this DVD table contains a unique ID for the DVD and a version ID, because everything in the database was version. So when you used this website before, you remember that you would make submissions, and those submissions would be processed by the moderators, and once approved, those changes would be reflected in the listings. So every time one of those changes occurred, the version ID would increment, and there are tables that keep a historical perspective of what each of these DVD listings look like at any point in time. So there's a history, and in principle, we would be able to roll back at any point in time. I don't think we ever did that, but so you have the DVD ID and the version ID, and then you have the DVD title. DVD title is what showed in that it has most of the DVD information, which is how it's described, what are the different components of the DVDs in terms of editions of different films, different versions, the bonus materials. All of that is in the DVD title field. The DVD title no case, that is used for searching and for sorting, and it has all those, remember we talked about Unicode and character sets and all of that, so it brings all of those the representations of words and letters into a reduced set that makes it easier to search, and when you sort, it's going to sort consistently, whether you have an uppercase A or lowercase a, they're going to show up in the same place in the sort. So that's what DVD title no case does. Film release year for titles, rather for listings that only have one film, the film release year will have 1980 or 2001 or whatever it happens to be. Director is a comma-separated list of the directors for the features and probably documentaries. I don't remember what the standards was, and extra materials maybe, I'm not sure. But it would be a comma-separated list of directors. A director no case, similar to DVD title case, would have the same information in a reduced character set that is used for searching and sorting. Same thing for publisher, is a comma-separated list of publishers. So you could have like the Criterion Collection, or you could be Warner Brothers or whoever, right? Original language, that is a comma-separated set of 2 character codes representing whether it's English, French, German, whatever it happens to be. And country, similarly, a comma-separated list of the countries related to that DVD, where the DVD came from, or where it's being published. So usually for European titles, you're going to have a bunch of, not usually, but sometimes you're going to have a bunch of countries for a specific DVD. Country block, I don't remember what that is. I would have to look at the code on how that's generated. Region mask is the region for the DVD from 0 through 6, and for Blu-rays from A through C, if I remember right, and HD DVDs don't have region. So what that is it's bits. So if bit 1 is turned on, it's region A, and if bit 3 is turned on, is region 2, whatever it happens to be, right? So that way a particular title can have multiple regions. Genera is, it's quite a nice classification for the different genres of the DVD. There's a table that this points to, which is a lookup, but it's quite an elaborate and sophisticated genre classification, because this genre classification is not going to be perfect, but what we have, or what we had in FilmAf, is pretty good. Media type is going to tell you whether it is a DVD, a Blu-ray, a combo disc, an HD DVD, or if it's if it's a film only, or something like that. Media type, number of discs and number of titles, that's what it is. Source, I do not remember what that is. Release status is whether it is current, out of print, or announced, I think. Film release date, similarly, when is it going to be released, or when it was released. So that's for the film, sorry. And similar for the DVD. And in this database, when you see DVD, that means DVD, Blu-rays, whatever. So DVD release date and DVD out of print date. That's what those are. Now, IMDb ID is a comma-separated list of IMDb IDs for the components of that, or for the individual films or episodes or titles in that particular listing. Picture status, what does that have? That's a good question. It probably tells you whether you have a picture or not, but there may be other information in there that I don't remember. Picture name, I think, relates to the file name that is related, that represents the picture of that title, the default picture for that title. Picture count says how many pictures you have for that particular title. So you have the default picture, and then there is another table that's going to relate pictures to titles, and a title can have any number of pictures. I think any number of pictures. And some of the users, they were able to choose which picture to show, or maybe all users, I don't remember, which pictures show in their collection, right? You will to pick which one. Picture count, we just went that. List price is the list price of the DVD or the Blu-ray. SKU is the product code. UPC, it is the SKU is within the studio. UPC is a product code that is across the industry. Sometimes that's not exactly respected, but like if you had a bar scanner, when you went to the website, you could just add your DVDs by scanning the UPC behind, and it was very quick. You go playing, edit, playing, edit, playing, edit, playing, edit. So you could add like 100 DVDs to a collection in like 5 minutes, as long as you had a barcode scanner. And ASIN is an Amazon identification number. I do not know what S stands for, but that's we use that to link to Amazon. And Amazon country is because obviously FilmAf had listings for all over the world, and some of those would have entries in the US site, Amazon site, and in the UK Amazon site, and so forth. So the Amazon country would say, for that ASIN, which country does that relate to? So when we link to Amazon, when we send you to Amazon, like you click the Amazon link, it will go to the right place. Best price, that's when we used to have data feeds, price feeds from different websites. There was a nightly process that would gather all that information from the different sites and surmise what was the best price for that particular DVD and present that in your listings if you chose to. Amazon Rank, similarly, there was a data feed from Amazon, and the Amazon Rank was used, I think, maybe in the front page, I don't remember, to show you what were the popular titles at the time. Collection Rank, similar to Amazon Rank, it is the same idea, but it's based on how many collections have that particular title. And then you have some housekeeping fields, which is when was the DVD created, when was updated, who created, who updated it. The indexed, that's probably has to do with some background process that I don't remember. Merged, sometimes we had duplicate entries being created, and the DVD ID merge would document that two titles had been merged into this on the surviving title, right? So that the surviving title eats the deprecated title, and the DVD ID merged probably pointed to the eaten title. Last, justify, if you remember when you put together a submission asking for a listing to be changed, you sometimes you had to say why, provide an explanation, and last justify would contain what that explanation was. And the verified by and time related to who and when approved that change. I don't remember why we have a verified version, because we already have the version. So I don't know why, but anyway, which version was verified. And DVD added ID. So there is an extensive, audit trail of who submitted what change and who approved it and so forth. And all of that relates to DVD edit ID. So the DVD edit ID was the submission that caused the DVD to be updated to what it looks like now in this version ID. And the creation seed is something to do with the way the web servers work and avoiding the creation of duplicate titles. It's just an internal thing. So the other table that might be of interest is My DVD. That is where your collection is. My DVD. And what that contains is obviously your user ID and which DVDs you own. So that's a combination. When you bring these two together, that's a record in this table. And where you put it, as you recall, you could create whatever organization for your DVDs and split them into folders and subfolders and subfolders. All of that is in here. You could sort them differently as well, like in my collection for anything that was, for some titles I wanted them sorted differently because of what? Because I didn't like how they were sorted originally, I guess. That's one way to put it. But for example, I had in my collection, I have a folder for Criterion DVDs, and I wanted that that in that folder that the Criterion DVDs showed up by spine ID. So in the short text, I would put the spine ID, so when I brought that listing up, it would be by how I want it sorted. Now the public indicator, you had an option, believe it or not, to make a listing private or public. If it was private, when other people, when somebody that's not you would look at the listing, that title would not show up, and you would have to be logged in as yourself in order to see that title. General overwrite is, some people didn't like the classification that we used for the listing, and they would want to change it. So general overwrite would give them a chance to, in their collection, say, yeah, this is not an action flick. This is a, murder mystery or whatever it happened to be. And picture override, that similarly, Remember that I mentioned that one DVD could have many pictures. If a person didn't like how the DVD was shown in their collection, they could go in and say, okay, I don't want this picture to be used, I want this other picture to be used, so that's where that would go. And user film rate and DVD rating. This was not really used by many people, and what that is like you could rate, you could give you know, I think it's half or 0 to 5 stars in half-star increments to either the film or the DVD. And the idea behind it is that the film would be referring to the content of the DVD, and the DVD rating would be referring to the technical aspects, such as the transfer. So you may like a movie, and the transfer may be shitty, and in that way you would have different an opportunity to rate them accordingly. Comments, I think you were able to put whatever it is that you wanted to say below your list in your collection, so that's where the comments were. On date is when you got that DVD, and that was, you can certainly edit it. I do not remember if it was automatically assigned, like when you brought something into your own folder or not, but that's what it was. And then you have, again, some audit fields. And that's pretty much it. Those are the main tables. There are a bunch of others, but I'm not going to go over everything. Some of these you can see are not, a lot of these are like internal things, like active top cache. This is probably has to do with either the search or the front page. Advert, at some point we had, I do not remember whether they were splash screens or whatever they were, but what would that be referring to? Clicks was some click tracking thing. I don't remember. I think it was perhaps used with adverts. I don't remember really, and it wasn't really that used. Debug, it was a way to record messages into the database for, guess what, debug purposes. Decodes, there are a bunch of codes in this, and the codes have meanings, and the decodes translates the codes into a more English-like description of what they represent. Deleted vendor or delete vendor and deleted user. I don't remember what these are. The deleted user might have been people's feedback they gave when they left the site. I don't remember. DVD and DVD direct update. So DVD we just went through. Direct update was when a moderator updated the DVD directly, as opposed to through the submission process, because the moderators had that ability. At least some moderators did, I think. DVD history is an audit table representing different versions of the history. DVD picture is where you associate a picture with a DVD, and you can have, I don't know if there was a limit or not. Similarly, you have a picture history. DVD submit, that's where all the audit trail for the different submissions of the DVDs were. And DVD AF user. User itself was or is, I'm not sure, a reserved word, so therefore we prefixed it by DVD AF underscore. And it's divided in 3 pieces because it represents different level of information that sometimes, DVD AF user is what's most often used, so we kind of split that into different tables. Email has a log of the emails that we sent, I think. Yes, that's what it is. Error log, I guess a log of errors. Explain keyword. So if you remember, you could hover over specific keywords in the website, and then if you hover long enough, you would have a pop-up, not a pop-up, what's it called? Tooltip? I forgot what it's called. There was something that would pop up and provide you an explanation of what that was. And so all of those are in this table. Facebook, posts and visits, that's something that never took off. Film, I don't remember why there is this differentiation between film pick and film history. Human check was, it's equivalent to CAPTCHA. There's a process by which you would implement that type of functionality. Import, these are data feed type things that you're not going to use. I think long SQL is long running SQLs. We kept a log of that. Microblog is part of the functionality that we had for the personal pages. That some people use it, but it wasn't widespread use. MyDVD is, we talked about that. MyDVD 2 has additional information that we didn't go over that people could put in their collection, but very few people used it, so it was in a separate table. I don't remember what these are. I think this is just an optimization so that when you bring up a screen, it can respond faster. My folder has your folder structures, my groups. I don't remember what that was. Neither I remember what my writes was. And neither I remember what this is. I haven't. Oh, one is just it's just a trick that sometimes you have to have like at least one row, and we refer to the table one. Person pick, that's probably your profile picture. You have a bunch of search caches over here so that your search results would come back faster, and you could also have autocomplete. These also enable the autocomplete on your searches. Splash was a splash screen. We didn't use that much. We used this way back when we had notifications about the site. Stats also, there was a stats page in your collection where you would get, oh, you have this many DVDs, and they split up this way or that way. So that's where that information was maintained. That's like a cache for your collection information. I don't remember what status is. Neither are user groups. And these are views, so these are probably views. And yeah, I don't remember what these are. Probably not important since I don't remember. So that's it. That's a rundown of the FilmAf database. So what have we done? We wrapped up the work on the virtual machine, and we installed Apache, we installed MySQL, and we brought all the data from the website into this copy of MySQL. In the next session, we're going to install PHP and get it working with an old version of PHP, as you can see, 5.4.45, and get it working with a modern version of MySQL and Apache. Right? Talk to you guys later. Take care.